There's a moment of profound intimacy, a space beyond words, where something more than just a physical exchange happens. It's a moment that can feel like both a beginning and an ending, filled with a strange mix of power, vulnerability, and awe. But past the biology, what is actually happening deep inside? What unfolds in the hidden parts of a man's psyche in that singular moment of release? Today, we're moving beyond the physical to explore the psychological landscape. Using the wisdom of Carl Jung, we'll journey into the 3 profound layers of experience a man might navigate, both consciously and unconsciously. We'll explore the ego's surrender, the powerful encounter with the inner feminine, and the touch of an ancient, creative archetype. This is about the hidden human experience within the act. To truly understand the depth of what happens in these intimate moments, we need a new language, a map for the hidden territories of the human psyche. This is where the work of Carl Jung becomes so invaluable. He proposed that our conscious mind, the part we think of as us, making decisions throughout the day, is just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface lies the vast and powerful unconscious, a deep well of feelings, memories, and instincts that we aren't directly aware of, but which fundamentally drives our actions, our attractions, and our most powerful experiences. It's the difference between seeing a wave on the ocean and understanding the immense, dark depths and powerful currents that move it from below. Most of the time, we live on the surface, but in moments of high emotion, passion, or trauma, these deeper currents break through, and we get a glimpse of how much more is going on inside us than we usually admit. One of the most crucial elements in a man's inner world, according to Jung, is the anima. This isn't a literal spirit, but rather the inner, unconscious feminine aspect that exists within his own psyche. It represents his capacity for connection, for feeling, for empathy, for what the Greeks called eros, the principle of relatedness, creativity, and life itself. Because it resides in the unconscious, a man doesn't usually relate to his anima directly. Instead, he projects it outward onto the world, and most powerfully, onto the women in his life. This is why falling in love can feel so fated and overwhelming. He isn't just seeing the woman in front of him, he is also seeing the embodiment of his own deepest, unknown feminine soul, his connection to the mystery of life. She becomes, in a sense, magical to him, holding the key to parts of himself he cannot otherwise access. This projection is not a lie or an illusion. It's a fundamental way the psyche tries to make the unknown known, to connect the inner world with the outer world. These powerful inner forces, like the anima, don't just pop up randomly. Jung believed they are part of deeper, universal patterns he called archetypes. Think of archetypes as the fundamental blueprints of human experience, the psychic equivalent of hardwired instincts. They are not inherited images, but inherited possibilities for experiencing and understanding universal themes like the mother, the hero, the wise old man, the trickster, or the creator. They are patterns that appear in our dreams, our myths, and our stories across all cultures because they are patterns baked into humanity itself. An archetype is like the deep, invisible riverbed that shapes the flow of a river of emotion and meaning. When we encounter one, the experience is charged with immense energy, numinosity, and a sense of something far larger than our individual selves. It feels profound, timeless, and powerful because we are tapping into a pattern that has shaped human experience for millennia. The mechanism that connects these inner archetypes to our outer world is called projection. In its simplest form, projection is the unconscious act of seeing qualities in other people that actually reside within ourselves, especially those qualities we are unaware of or uncomfortable with. We are constantly projecting. When we instantly like or dislike someone, when we feel intensely triggered, or when we idealize a partner, we are often projecting parts of our own unconscious onto them. In the context of intimacy, This process is amplified to its highest degree. The closeness and vulnerability act like a magnet, pulling these powerful projections to the surface. So, in a moment of profound physical and emotional connection, a man isn't just with his partner. He is, without realizing it, also in a relationship with the projection of his own anima and the powerful archetypal energies it connects to. He is seeing not just her, but through her, to the deepest and most symbolic parts of himself. This makes the moment not just personal, but transpersonal, touching on something eternal and universal within the human experience. To understand the full weight of this moment, we have to begin at the most personal level, with the experience of the ego. In our daily lives, we are constantly managing, controlling, and presenting a version of ourselves to the world. The ego is the captain of that ship, maintaining boundaries and a sense of individual identity. But intimacy, at its peak, demands something entirely different. It requires a complete and total surrender of that control. This is the peak of vulnerability. It's a letting go that is both physical and psychological, a moment where the need to perform, to impress, or to maintain a facade simply falls away. The mental chatter that asks, "Am I doing this right?" or "How do I look?" finally goes silent. What remains is a state of pure being and raw sensation, where a man is no longer thinking about the experience but is fully immersed within it. This surrender is why it can feel so terrifying and yet so liberating. It is the ultimate act of trust, not just in his partner, but in the moment itself. This dissolution of the ego's tight control is so profound that it has been referred to across cultures as la petite mort, the little death. It's not a death in the literal sense, but a fleeting, symbolic end to the isolated self. For a brief instant, the walls that usually separate one person from another come down, and there is a feeling of merging, of oneness. This is a tiny taste of non-being, a release from the constant burden of individuality. And like any death, even a small one, it has a powerful aftermath. It explains the complex and often contradictory feelings that can follow. There can be an intense need for connection, to hold and be held, to reaffirm the bond that was just solidified in that vulnerability. Conversely, there can also be a retreat into solitude, a quiet and sometimes distant introspection as the ego slowly reassembles its boundaries, processing the shock of its own temporary disappearance. It's a natural recalibration after touching a state of being that is so far from our ordinary, separated existence. But this experience is never just about the self. The surrender of the ego opens a door to a deeper, relational layer, where the encounter is not just with another person, but with a powerful symbol. In this vulnerable state, a man's projection of his inner feminine, his anima, becomes more than a psychological concept. It becomes his reality. He isn't merely with his partner. He is connecting with the essence of the feminine itself as he experiences it within his own psyche. She becomes the embodiment of everything the feminine represents to his unconscious: mystery, creativity, nourishment, and the very source of life. This is why the moment can feel so transcendent. It is charged with a meaning that goes far beyond the two individuals involved. It feels sacred because, on an unconscious level, it is sacred. It is a participation in a universal mystery. This connection often manifests as a profound and visceral feeling of returning to the source. It can feel like a homecoming, a safe arrival at a place of ultimate acceptance and creativity. There is an echo of the primal connection to the mother, but deepened and transformed by adult intimacy. It is an unconscious return to the symbolic womb, not just a physical place, but a state of being that is life-giving, nurturing, and deeply mysterious. In this space, the act itself transforms from an experience of pleasure into an experience of profound meaning. It becomes a sacred offering, an act of pouring his essence, both literally and symbolically, into the vessel of life and creation. This is not a conscious thought process, but a deep, instinctual recognition of the immense creative power he perceives in his partner. He is, in that moment, acknowledging and participating in a power that is fundamentally feminine, a power that can receive seed and bring forth life. It is this unconscious recognition that elevates the act from the physical to the mythical, making it a ritual that has been repeated since the beginning of human consciousness. Beyond the personal surrender and the relational connection, there exists a third layer that touches something far more ancient and universal. This is where the experience transcends the two individuals entirely and brushes against the archetypal, a realm that can feel nothing short of sacred. In that moment of release, a man, often without any conscious thought, taps into one of the most primordial patterns of all, the creator archetype. This isn't about ego or pride. It's an unconscious, profound participation in the most fundamental force in existence, the force of creation itself. The act becomes a ritual, a microcosm of the cosmic impulse to generate life, to bring something new into being from the void. He is no longer just a man. He becomes, in a fleeting psychic sense, a conduit for the same energy that spins galaxies and seeds forests. It is an instinctual alignment with the role of the life giver, the generator, the one who plants the seed from which worlds can grow. This connection is felt not as a thought, but as a wave of raw, potent meaning that can infuse the act with a gravity and significance that is almost impossible to put into words. This touch of the archetypal can feel like a glimpse behind the curtain of the mundane world, offering a momentary sense of what some might call godhood. Again, this is not about inflation or arrogance. It's the exact opposite. It is a humbling and awe-inspiring feeling of being used by something vastly larger than oneself. There is a powerful, often shocking, recognition that one is participating in a miracle that has repeated itself since the beginning of time. This is the source of that profound stillness, that sense of awe and even spiritual transcendence that can follow. It's the feeling of being a single note in a symphony of creation that has been playing for eternity. In this space, the act is stripped of all its modern complexities and reduced to its most essential, powerful truth, the terrifying and beautiful potential to create. It can be an encounter with the sublime that leaves a man feeling both immensely powerful and utterly small, connected to a chain of being that stretches back to the very origins of life. Yet, as with all profound power, this archetypal energy casts a long shadow. The same wave that brings a sense of awe and connection can also bring a crashing weight of responsibility and primal fear. To touch the archetype of the creator is to also brush against its opposite, the destroyer, or simply the fear of failing to create. This is where unconscious anxieties can surge to the surface. The thought, however fleeting, can arise: am I a good creator? Is my essence potent and viable? This can connect to deep-seated fears of inadequacy, not just as a lover, but as a provider, a protector, a father. There can also be a sudden, terrifying awareness of the power that has just been transferred, a realization that the woman now holds the potential outcome of that creative act within her body. This can bring a feeling of vulnerability and a fear of the immense responsibility that potential life represents. The moment of ultimate connection can, in its aftermath, trigger a retreat into solitude as the ego struggles to reintegrate after touching something so vast and formidable. It's a confrontation with the deepest burdens and expectations of what it means to be a man, a generator of life, and the sobering reality that comes with playing a part in a force so much greater than ourselves. After such a powerful and layered experience, there is always a return. The intense energy of the archetypal realm naturally recedes, the profound sense of connection with the symbolic feminine softens its grip, and the conscious ego, the familiar sense of I, begins to reassert itself. This return from such a vulnerable and expansive state is not always smooth or simple. It's a process of integration that explains the complex and often confusing tapestry of feelings that can follow intimacy. It's the coming back to oneself after briefly touching something far greater, and the landing can feel very different depending on the person, the relationship, and the moment itself. For many, this return can be accompanied by an overwhelming sense of deep connection and love. When the experience feels whole and the unconscious projections are met with genuine care and presence, the feeling of merging doesn't just vanish. It leaves a residue of warmth and union. The temporary dissolution of the ego's boundaries can result in a lasting sense of closeness, as if the walls between two people have been permanently lowered just a little. There's a gratitude and a tenderness that arises not just for the partner, but for the shared vulnerability itself. It's a feeling of being truly seen and accepted in a moment of utter defenselessness, and that affirmation can forge a powerful bond that strengthens the relationship in the clear light of day. However, the same vulnerability that opens the door to connection can also be the source of intense discomfort. For some, the ego can feel threatened or even assaulted by the raw, unconscious forces that were just unleashed. To have one's ordinary sense of self stripped away, even for a moment, can be a frightening experience. This can lead to feelings of exposure, vulnerability, and in some cases, a deep sense of shame. The ego, in its effort to re-establish control and safety, might misinterpret the surrender as a loss of power or a moment of weakness it needs to quickly compensate for. This is why a man might suddenly become quiet, withdrawn, or even irritable after a moment of profound intimacy. His psyche is struggling to reconcile the overwhelming power of the unconscious with his everyday identity. This withdrawal is so common it has a name, postcoital tristesse, or the sadness after sex. It's not necessarily a sign that something is wrong. Often, it's a natural and necessary psychological process. After the ego has dissolved and expanded so significantly, it needs time to pull back, to redraw its boundaries, and to integrate the experience. This retreat into solitude is the mind's way of processing, of taking stock, of slowly coming back to earth after a journey into the heavens or the depths. It's a quiet introspection, a gentle folding back into oneself. It's crucial to understand that this distance is often not about the partner at all, but about the internal, personal work of reassembling the self after it has been opened so completely. It's also vital to remember that these experiences exist on a vast spectrum. Not every intimate encounter will tap into these profound depths. For some, it may be a primarily physical release, a joyful and connecting expression of affection that doesn't stir the deeper archetypal currents. For others, it may be a deeply spiritual event. The range of what a man feels is influenced by countless factors: the depth of the relationship, his own psychological history, his capacity for vulnerability at that moment, and even his unconscious readiness to confront these powerful forces within himself. There is no single right way to experience or feel after such a moment. The human psyche is too complex for that. The beauty and the challenge lie in accepting this entire spectrum, from the simple and joyful to the profoundly transformative, as a natural part of the mysterious landscape of human connection. So, as we've seen, to view this moment through a Jungian lens is to understand it as so much more than a biological function. It is, in its fullest expression, a profound journey through the very layers of the human psyche. It begins with the personal surrender of the ego, that vulnerable letting go of the self we work so hard to maintain. From there, it moves into a relational space, a powerful encounter with the inner feminine, the Anima, where a connection with a partner becomes symbolic of something deeper within. And finally, in its most expansive form, it can become a transpersonal event, a brief but awe-inspiring touch with the archetypal force of the Creator itself, connecting a personal act to the universal mystery of creation. Understanding this depth does more than satisfy intellectual curiosity. It helps to demystify the powerful and often confusing wave of emotions that can accompany such intimacy. It allows us to see that these feelings, from blissful connection to vulnerable retreat, are not random or meaningless. They are the natural echoes of the psyche processing an experience that is as psychic and symbolic as it is physical. It frames sex not merely as a physical act between two people, but as a meeting of two entire universes, each with their own conscious histories and vast, unconscious depths. When two people come together, it is never just two people. It is the coming together of two entire inner worlds, with all their myths, their archetypes, their hopes, and their fears. This exploration is ultimately about understanding the hidden currents that shape our lives and our relationships. We're curious about your thoughts. Does this perspective resonate with your own experiences? Have you ever sensed these deeper layers at play, either in your own life or in the way you connect with someone else? We invite you to share your reflections in the comments below. Your insights are what make this a conversation. If this journey into the deeper aspects of the psyche intrigued you, consider subscribing for more explorations into Jungian psychology and the hidden architecture of the human experience. And let us know which Jungian concept you'd be interested in us exploring next. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.